Okay, so we are at the beginning of day number 3 at the Bitcoin conference, and today is the day where Mr. Trump is going to speak, and I think it's going to be phenomenal. I'm gonna give you an overview of yesterday because it was really an amazing day, and I'm definitely going to do a few more in depth videos. I don't have a lot of time today because the security is very tight. They have the Secret Service and the TSA working together. The whole building is essentially like going into an airport. So, and once you are in that room where Mr. Trump will speak, you can actually not leave again without going through security. And at this point, it just takes hours and hours to get through security. Now, luckily, I have a whale pass and I can speed that up a little bit. But yeah, so yesterday, I'm just gonna go over what really stood out to me. The first speech that really stood out to me was Michael Saylor's speech. As some of you may know, he is a big Bitcoin proponent, and he has essentially catapulted his company to the stratosphere by putting Bitcoin into his bookkeeping, right? So his long-term assets and medium-term assets are not in equities and securities, as this happens to be with most companies, but it is in Bitcoin. And it's just a super strong hedge against inflation. It has all the great qualities that we want in an asset that has extreme long-term decay rate, right? According to him, if you invest in Bitcoin, the cost of maintenance until you see a lesser return on it is over 100,000 years. And what was really cool is that he laid out a plan for individuals, small companies, corporations, nations, poor nations, rich nations, and the United States. He laid out a plan of what to do and what not to do, so that in the long term you just build up wealth that cannot be eaten up by inflation. And essentially, the short summary is to invest as much as you can in Bitcoin. Don't spend it, and of course keep your day job, keep your income, live a little bit below your means, but definitely do not trust into the fiat system that, according to him and pretty much all the speakers at the conference, is really was instituted by President Nixon. He was the one that decoupled the dollar from the gold standard in order to fund the wars, the Vietnam War. As you may know, the Federal Reserve Bank and pretty much any federal bank of any countries have the right to print more money, and by doing so, diluting the value of the currency. Is basically the metaphor is you have wine and you pour in water into your wine. So we don't want that. Michael Saylor has truly inspired me because he basically said, listen, you are at the precipice of a different financial system worldwide, maybe a different reserve currency, and it's your choice. You can have a shot at building generational wealth in your lifetime or not, right? So I'm very much inspired, and I think I'm gonna go into crypto even heavier than I have before. I'm also gonna think very hard about maybe moving to a jurisdiction where I have better tax incentives for my crypto deposits. Um, the next person that truly stood out to me was RFK. He truly understands crypto, and he has also invested his personal wealth into Bitcoin years ago. He has a plan, and I think this is the most powerful part of his speech. If he was to be elected president, he will make sure that most of the Federal Reserve and the ongoing revenue of the nation is going to be invested in Bitcoin, so that in the long run we can finally control our enormous deficit that we have as a country. he also wants to definitely stop fueling the war machine. He's of the opinion that, of course, national defense is important, but it's not important to take inflation based wealth that truly, at the end of the day, the taxpayer pays for and fund wars throughout the world that, according to him, are ultimately to the detriment of how the United States is seen as a nation in the world. He also banks very heavily on energy, renewable energy, and green energy. I think that is one of the big differences between him and President Trump. Trump wants to leverage nuclear energy and also our fossil energies, and RFK is really an environmentalist, and he wants to kind of go on the green way, if you will. Um, I think also RFK is truly a long-time hardcore Bitcoin proponent, whereas President Trump has more opportunistic approaches. I do believe he sees the value in crypto now and he will support it, but he has not always been on that page. He's definitely not a long-term supporter, but also he definitely has to navigate the politics a lot more, right? And that is truly when you get into power. Now, all of a sudden, you have to find the common denominator between all of the stakeholders that have been there for a long time. And RFK will have to deal with that too, should he get elected. So, yeah, that was RFK's speech, very powerful. The other person worth mentioning, Kathy Woods with ARK Invest. She definitely is a pioneer in institutional investing into crypto technologies and definitely very smart individual. They see a lot of opportunities in increasing the efficiency in everyday Bitcoin transactions as a payment method. There's definitely ways where we can improve that, and she's heavily invested in that. Listen, oh yeah, the other there were two U.S. senators. One was Tim Scott and I forget the lady's name. Loomis, maybe? I'm not sure. I have to go back and look at my notes, but it's really interesting to see that at the level of the Senate, now we have people understanding crypto. And yeah, I mean, it has gotten to a point where it is inevitable that Bitcoin will have a tremendous impact on finances and on companies' ledgers, and I just want to be part of that wave. The other great speech was delivered by Edward Snowden. Of course, with the way he experienced things, he's very critical and careful. He reminded all of us that the Bitcoin transactions are on a publicly available ledger. Now, not all wallets are doxed, but most, and doxed means that you know who owns the wallet. But most wallets are connected to someone or an entity that has that where we know who they are, right? So he sees a risk at AI gobbling up all of that information available on the public ledgers and creating meta graphs, meta identities of every single individual, every single identity, individual and entity, and then basically create profiles based on graphs that stand out of the norm. And of course, I think he's probably right in his worries. I don't know to what extent and what extreme that will go, but it is clear that all of the cryptographic transactions with cryptocurrencies are, for the most part, on public ledgers. Um, so, was there one other thing? I think that was pretty much the highlight from my perspective, or the highlights, I should say. At the end of the day, yesterday, I also had an amazing get together with a group of people called The Herd. And The Herd is essentially are all the folks who are invested in the DeFi project that I am heavily invested in, called Elephant Money, with its futures and its lending business, its token trunk. And it was just amazing to meet, I believe, over 70 individuals. Typically, we crypto enthusiasts go by aliases and usernames, and we don't really know who is behind that alias, right? So yesterday we were able to put a face on a lot of those names, and that just felt very, very good, I have to say. Now, yeah, I'm about to go to the venue again, go through security so that I can watch the President Trump's speech at, I believe, 2 p.m. here in Tennessee. Yeah, I have to tell you, this has been one of the best conferences I have attended. I do not regret this at all, and I will keep reporting back to you in the next video. Thank you so much for your attention.